Aya yoxsatini the kat yuhan. Yewa dat you tuchutanyayagi. Dech nadai hin kutzati hadat. Kijk yude. Kartakou hin. Kijk yude. Wuchi kilko hin. Ja, kartakou hin, wuchi kilko hin. A yich away, ye Canadine. Uski we kartakou hin. Ye gay wuchi kilko hin. Ye away, you do a sock. Yag Áak'w. Atlein adayeti. Áak'w. Áak'w. Tak. Áak'w. Ta. Áak'w. Ta. Áak'w. Áak'w. Sit. Sit Sit adach away ye Canadine. Wuch ilchilchohin. Ye away yag. Áak'w. You do a saax'ú at you. Ye away. Achchawe Ḳwáan. You has to a saax'ú. Ya has to Aaní kakaya ye hayati. Ya has to datawe ye tachtatan. Áak'w adachawe ye Canadine we uski Qatini. You do a saax'ú. Qatini. Aqa awe dasatsu yag. Kartakou hinde. Qa guksa we yendaqin at. Yendaqin qa akatwijaqaq. Tashui, you do a saax'ú at tashui. Ichkiawe adach chukan Aaní. Qa tzadnach ade we sha taxatanjan, you do a saax'ú. Gleitqaq inach hasitwasaku Thunder Mountain ye hasai a saax'ú. Kach satanjan qoa you do a saax'ú gitqinach. Aqa we sha nachtlain. Sha nachtlain. We do we like nadayihin. Atlain Áak'w adayeti. Hastsu hasitwasaku. We adixachaye. Guksa atlain klig aya atlain you. We nadayihin qoa guntlhin. You do a saax'ú guntlhin. Dech Áak'w kutzati. Qa qoa wudutlayech. Áak'w kesh aye utiyan. Kesh as kutzati. Qa awe we do titlhini. Titlhini aya. Search you do a saax'ú we nakdaki hiti qa Bartlett. Atuwant aya. Titlhini. Yasha qoa katlach jini. Aqa awe katlach, shatlach, shatlach. Yada at katle itchi shanach. Zanti kihini, zanti. Atlein saax'ú kutzati hasu Aaní kak. Achtawasaku utusaku seat ka. You do a saax'ú at Gleitqaq inach gas in our channel. Ye awe adat you tuchutanyayagi. Gunchish. Okay. Gwallitu yuhansu itwasaku yuchiwatani Lingít chenach Áak'wati. Okay. What was I talking about?
Kind of felt like you were giving us a tour of some part of Lemon Creek at some point when you were talking about Search and then Bartlett and then Zonta and then Yada at Kachle.
Yeah, what? So it started like kind of here by the university. There's just a couple rivers I've been thinking about. One is called Ḳwáan. Ḳwáan is a smaller river. It's just up this way a little, from campus. You go out to the back loop and then go take a right on the back loop a little bit, and you'll go down, then you'll go over it. It's called Montana Creek on the maps, and Ḳwáan is the river that runs itself clean, and then that one goes into another one. Anybody catch the name of the second one? It's a while ago. It's Ḳwáan. So Ḳwáan is runs murky together. So that one's the larger river, which on the maps is called Mendenhall River. Then I started thinking about, like, Áak'w is the name of this little lake right here by the campus. And then you've got a lot of places that have that Áak'w in it. Áak'w is the head of Áak'w Bay, which is right over here where there's the science buildings for the campus. Áak'w is the fort of Little Lake Fort, I guess you'd call it. It's up a little bit towards the ferry terminal. The ferry terminal is called Ḳwáan, inside the mouth of a person. And then if you go, we kind of did some of these directional things, right? And so you've got, from here you can go Íq, which would be towards the ocean, and you can go Daaák'w, which would be towards away from the ocean. There's another one which is Áak'w, and Áak'w means behind, but like on the landward side. So if you had a house that was facing the ocean, the things behind the house would be Áak'w. It means behind it and on the ocean, on the landward side. So this whole valley is called Áak'w, and so that's what some people call the Mendenhall Valley, but it's Áak'w, which means inland from the little lake. Then you have Áak'w, which is the glacier up there, and from the glacier around it you have Sit'á, glacier lake, and from Sit'á runs Ḳwáan, and Ḳwáan runs into Ḳwáan. And then running out of Áak'w to Áak'w, you have Kayaaní, which is, you know what Kayaaní translates to? I should make a list of these, hold on. Let's take a look at these. So we had Ḳwáan, I should capitalize these. Then we had Ḳwáan. Then we had Áak'w, Áak'w, New, Áak'w, Sit, and Kayaaní. So I guess, let's see, I know what I'm going to do, hold on. Wait a minute. Okay, I think I'll do it like this. It'll be a little bit smaller. It's a little bigger, okay. So going back through, I guess what I'm looking for is, here's Lingít, here's English, or here's, let's say, translation. And then we'll say AKA, or maybe we'll say CKA, how's that? Colonially known as, okay. Make these in the headers and then we'll go back. I'll try and remember all the ones I did. So let's see. What does Ḳwáan translate to? Do I remember?
The river that runs itself clear.
Yes. is that also known as? So Montana Creek. What about Wuchitluhui?
Isn't it, it's also referred to as the elementary school?
Yes, Ḳwáan is the elementary school as well. So now that's like okay.
I guess it doesn't fit under the colonial name as, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Just we'll just remember that.
Yeah.
What about
runs murky together? Is that what you said?
and CKA?
Mendenhall River.
I think it will make these smaller. Okay, and then Áak'w.
Lake.
Little lake. Also known as
Is runks a word?
Huh?
Is runks a word or is that a typo?
Oh, it's
Okay, okay.
jeez.
Also known as runks.
That's actually Mendenhall's nickname. Hey, there's old Runks. I'm here to name everything. I don't think he's ever been here. I don't know. Okay. Áak'w.
The head of Áak'w.
I don't know if is there a name for this on the map? It's kind of right where I guess it's just Áak'w, right? I don't really know. Oh, I forgot. I got one more to add to here. Okay, what about Áak'w?
Little late word.
I think this is Áak'w, like that. It's like some kind of road. Áak'w.
Behind Little Lake.
Mm-hmm. And what is this place? CKA.
The Mendenhall Valley.
Yeah, wow. Or sometimes just the valley. Áak'w.
Glacier behind a little lake. Or upland.
Is it upland or inland?
I would usually say upland, but it's behind and inland or upland. But I like to separate it from dock. But I guess the difference is dock is saying generally away from the ocean, and áak'w is saying behind something on the inland side of it. Which I don't know how you do that in English. It takes a lot more words in English, I think, to do. Is there a word in English that sort of says something like that?
Behind the land behind the ocean.
Landward side of it?
Yeah, I guess I'm sort of wondering if you were on the water, if you would say dock, or if you would say yawn, and you have to be on land to say dock.
if
You know what I
you're,
mean?
yeah, if you're in the water and if you said yun, you would be referring to the shore. And if you
The
said Áak'w would be the things behind the shore. But then if there's something, but then if there's like, let's say you're looking and there's a boat that's way up above the tide line, and you're talking about something behind that boat from your perspective out on the ocean, that would be Áak'w. So basically there has to be an object there, and then you're talking about inland from that object, which doesn't work well in English, I don't think. Hawaiian probably has a word for it. They're like, oh yeah, you can go Malco from that.
I guess I was more wondering if it means away from the water or actually elevation height. Like I hear upland and I think, oh wait,
Yes, yeah, I think it means inland from something. So it means, it's like dock, but then it's referring to there's something in between it and the ocean, and it's inland from that thing. So I guess we could say inland from. How's that? Because yeah, this does imply like there's these steps or something.
Okay.
Okay? Sheesh. Sit ah.
Glacier Lake.
Yeah, wow. Does this one have a name? Is Mendenhall Lake?
Mendenhall Lake, another one of the Mendenhalls.
And this is glacier. What about Kayaaní? There's two words that are smooshed together. If you make that first vowel long and low, then you'll get.
Is it sockeye?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's a name for this one. Is that Áak'w River or something? It's a very small creek that flows out of Áak'w and right over to Áak'w.
I'm sure. It's probably like Áak'w River, but yeah, you're right. I think it must have a name though. There's a little fish, what do you call it, that's up there? Weird. Fish something. Somebody's there doing something on it, so they must have a name for it.
Okay, I forgot that one. Aaní. Oh, before we get to that one, I just want to say this one's a really good one to say because you have the adjective at the end, then at the front, then at the end. So you go Áak'w, sit. I think it's good practice. Okay, Aaní.
Áak'w. And it's the place of entrance and exit.
Not quite. So here you have, these are the two parts that you have if you broke it apart. Aaní. So you have a noun, a suffix, and a verb. And then this verb root means to carry multiple stick-like objects, or to move multiple stick-like objects. And so there's a singular version of this verb, which is saax'ú, and then the plural is saax'ú. And these both refer to moving a stick-like object. So saax'ú, this one is used sometimes for spearing something, for poking something with a stick, for putting a stick into the water and using it to pull your canoe up the river and also to push a canoe out. It's also used to raise your hand or move your hand. So you say, Well, I think they used su for that one. But there's a song that goes, Da yai chatzak we de ya ke he ha, and this is the verb for that. Then there's another song, a really old song that uses this one. It goes, Daki tlitzu yijin, kochi tlitzu yijin, daki tlitzu yijin, yitlechwa yijin. It's the hokey pokey. So when you have anchqaltsu, you do have on, which is, I would say when you think of the word on, I would recommend, and Lingít has a bunch of words like this, where it's like it means 2 or 3 different things, but there's kind of a main meaning. I think the primary meaning for this is a village. Because if you say Áak'w de nachtu'a, I would translate that as let's go to my village. It is used a lot as land, but I think village is probably a more accurate translation of this word. Not to say that land is wrong. But I think village is probably the primary definition, whereas like Áak'w would be our land. So this is the village that migrated. And there's 3 different ways to talk about migrating in Lingít. There's migrating and we don't know where we're going. There's migrating and we're never coming back. And then there's migrating, but we'll be back. So this is the we'll be back one. And I think the way the verb works is because in the summertime with a lot of the big houses, you would take the planks off of the house and you would go use them to build a summer fish camp. And so you'd have anchqaltsu, everybody left the village in the summer, but then they came back in the winter. So I think that's what that name refers to. Okay. Then we went.
Oh, and it is Áak'w Creek.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, really, okay. I was gonna say the same thing.
Jeez. Okay. So then we went. Where'd we go after that? Anybody remember?
Saax'ú.
We did, yeah, we went that way. I guess kind of Ichki. And we went to Taanáx, I think.
Saax'ú is left, right?
Yeah.
And then what's right?
Shinach.
Shinach.
Guksa we yendeqin at ach yendeqin ka akat wujaqaq. Yendeqin yak yisukuga. What's that? Can't hear you. Adekhat no. Gwell Seattle de kakitaqin adekakikhoch. Where the airport is. It's called Tashui. So I guess we'll say airport area. And Tashui is,
They call it the wetlands out there. Maybe that's, maybe that's not, I mean,
Tashui would be like, yes, it would be like a place where, especially if you think of harvesting suqqadzi, beach asparagus, it likes to grow in a place where the ocean comes over it and then leaves, but you still have it's grass, right? So it's a tidal zone, but it's not tide flats. Like tide flats that are like muddy are called, what are those called? Llyn. Ugh. So Llyn is the tide flats, but this is, oh, we need a geologist. What do you call it in it's grassy, but the tide goes over it repeatedly, regularly. Let's call it tide flats.
You're talking about not the dunes, but the
It's like a grass, it's usually a grassy area, but you get different kinds of grass because it is a tidal zone and it gets completely covered by the tide, but it's still grassy.
We just call it the flat.
The
the
flat
salt marsh.
salt marsh?
Intertidal zone.
I feel like that's what they call it in Louisiana, but I don't know.
Littoral zone. Intertidal zone is something.
The intertidal zone. Yeah.
Littoral
Or
zone?
littoral.
Littoral?
Littoral is what I'm seeing.
Okay.
Tidal
Tashui.
salt marsh is like this up.
We're going to get into a couple of these. So then there's, heading down from there, you've got Kayaaní. There's Ḳwáan and Kayaaní all over the place. There's a million of those all over the place.
Grass village.
Yes, and so I think it would just like grasslands maybe is and this goes against the on definition that I just gave you. But Kayaaní. And then this is okay, this is called the Mendenhall. This is where people hunt ducks, right down.
Wetlands.
Wetlands. Oh, maybe that's what Tashui is as well, wetlands. Intertidal wetlands, okay. Add it to the list, all right. Then I think we went across the highway to Ţwáan. This name is made up of 3 parts.
And rest, is that the resting one?
Yes, so satan. So each of these carrying verbs, this is going to show how bad I am at English. I have some degrees in English, but I'm bad at these ones. Which one, lay or lie? Like a stick is lying there? Laying there? Whichever one it is. So these are, you have a carrying verb. So you could say like, Aqchit satan, hand me the stick-like object. But you can also say, yuk satan, it's laying there, right? Or lying there, I don't know. So that's what the form is taking here. Kach satan, it's like, it is really laying there. So kach means very. Satan is either a handling verb for a stick-like object or for a stick-like object to be lying somewhere. And then jin is a hand. So usually this has 2 translations. I'm sure we've talked about them. One of them is hands at rest. Anybody know the second definition?
Oh. I don't remember, but I remember. Yes.
Anybody know what this is called in English, this area?
Hanselman Ridge?
Yeah, so it's Heitzel. I don't know how to spell it. And it has another name, but I'd say it's more of just a local name. I don't think it's on a map. But there is a school named after it. And a drywall company.
Thunder Mountain Ridge? Or there's Thunder Mountain?
So Ḳwáan also means does not masturbate. When we as far as I know, this is the first official place name to have a special character, like one of the underlines on it. And so we put that on the official place name through the process probably 8 years ago, 7 years ago. And when people ran a story about it, they said, what does the name mean? And I said, well, Ḳwáan means hands at rest. And they said, I heard it has maybe another meaning. And I said, I don't know. Because I wasn't going to put it in the paper, because then they wouldn't let us get our names back. They'd be like, look at them. Everything's a joke to them. Whatever. Okay. So from Ḳwáan, we went to Shanachklaim. What does that translate to?
Through the mountain? No, yeah, through.
Shanach does mean through the mountain, literally.
Oh, valley. The
Yes.
valley, yeah.
And what is claim?
Oh, big. Big valley.
And what is this area called?
Mendenhall Valley, right? Is that?
That's, so here's the,
Oh,
on the other side of Ḳwáan,
okay. Oh,
Aaní. It has another name.
Lemon Creek.
Yes. Someone asked me to name Costco and I called it Atnasi Dakahiti, which is not always accurate, but I like it. Atnasi Dakahiti. Atnasi Dakahiti. You know what that is?
like sausage or
Yeah. Hot dog.
hot dog, yeah.
Hot dog building.
Oh, right.
I know they've got a lot more than that. It seems like the hot dogs are like a pretty legendary part of it. Okay, then you have ich. Okay, this is where I'm going to get stuck here in two things. One is the spelling, because I do believe that's how it goes, but let me check. What is this place called? Okay, low. Everything goes low. Okay, ich Ḥwáan. There are 3 parts to this, and I should probably, you might not know 2 of the parts. I guess this is also, so this would be Lemon Creek area, and this would be Lemon Creek itself. I think that's what, this is the one that runs near the dump, right? It's Lemon Creek. Yeah? Okay, so Ḥwáan. I think I don't think we had that word documented, but luckily, and we also didn't have, I want to give some credit to Marie Olson, because she's the one who told us this name, Ḥwáan. She's the one who told us this name, Áak'w, and she's the one who told us this name, Taanáx, and then she's the one who told us what Gunt means. So Áak'w is a slough, Héen is a river, Gunt is a thermal uprising in the riverbed, but not a hot spring, right? It's just like, there's one of these in this, they exist in the Chilkat River and they exist in Ḥwáan. And what happens is where you have this sort of thermal uprising, there's probably some name for it, I don't know. But when you have that, you get late dog salmon runs to those places. Most salmon prefer cold water. So if the water's too warm, they're not going to run in those spots. But the exception is some of these thermal uprisings, because that's where you get these late November dog salmon runs. And that's what attracts a lot of eagles, but they also like the dump, so. I guess I would say thermal, river, bed, slough, river. I don't know how to translate it though. That's how it works. We kept going south and we had Titini. If you think of Qatini, you should be able to get Titini. It's probably low.
Dog Salmon River.
What's that one called on the map? Anybody know? Search 21
I think that one's Salmon, is that one Salmon Creek? Or no, wait, where am I at? Yeah, I think it's Salmon Creek. Is that the one by
Salmon
the hospital?
Yeah.
Yeah, Salmon Creek.
Then Kayaaní. And we'll do Kayaaní and Shatla. Oops. These are right in a row. We're heading towards, we're on the stretch from the search and hospital area to downtown, staying on the left-hand side. Kayaaní, Kayaaní, Shatla. Anybody know what the tlach part is? So all Lingít names are awesome. I know someone who said, my name is Mother of the Mountain. I was like, oh, what a cool name. Can you say it? She said, Shao Tlach. I said, that's not Mother of the Mountain. Anybody know what that is?
Is that the mother's breast? No, I'm thinking of something else.
What's Shao?
Muscle?
Like on the beach? It's yak.
Oh,
But
close though.
you're in the right kind of area.
That's not.
Is it a clam?
You're still in the right area, but the shell's on the inside. It's a gumbo. And then tlach is mold. So it's the mold on a gumbo, which I think is a great name. But I think they really got disappointed. It's like, hey, that means you stay in one place. People can't move you around. Grass just grows right on your back. So Kayaaní is moldy top. Shatla is moldy mountain. Some people might say it's Shatla, which would be moldy head. Could be. I don't know the names of these on the maps. And then this is the arm of moldy top. This is the ridge that extends from the mountain, and it kind of it's still a mountain, but it kind of dwindles downward, and then it wraps around, and then you've got the salmon bake place and the Tlingit Haida, but their place is called Generation Southeast now. That whole area where that ridge comes down, and I think probably even that Twin Lakes area is called Kayaaní because it like extends like a long arm. Kayaaní is moldy top. It's the mountain, I think it's the first mountain peak before you get downtown. Then the second one is Shatla, which I think is Mount Juno? Is that what that one's called? It's got the little wooden structure on the top of it. And then you go around, you start going around that cluster of mountains, and the one that's facing downtown, I think, is Áak'w. Which I don't know what that one's called either on the map. But Áak'w is, Ya is a face, Da is around, At is a thing or things. K'w means it's nice to look at, it's beautiful. So that's where you get beautifully adorned face. Okay, Okay. I think those are all the ones I did. Oh, and then I guess I did one more. I know I did one more. There's a sitka all over the place. There's also sitka, then there's shitka. Those are 3 different things. So we should probably do all of them so we can get it straight in our mind. What do you think these 3 things are? Or any of them?
Like you said, cuz, top.
Yeah, or on.
Okay.
Depends. Ka.
Is Sitka the channel?
Yes. So this means on the channel. And what do you think this is for the Juneau area? This one is in the Juneau area. Áak'w, Aaní. Gotta stop saying Juneau.
Sheep Creek, isn't it?
It's a channel.
Yes to know?
Yes. So what would sitka and shitka be? This one also becomes shitka.
Glacier?
On the glacier. There's a few of those around, like a whole bunch, like most villages have a Kayaaní, a Gunhini, a Sitka, Tithini. They got them all around their villages. And then Ika is on the ocean side of something, or sometimes on the outskirts of town. But especially like if you think of the Sitka area, you have the open ocean on one side, then you have a channel on the other side. Well, there's like an island and stuff. So she is the name of an island, and then Ika, so that's saying on the ocean side, out on the water, on the ocean side from she. I guess on the ocean side. Okay. Okay, that was fun. Sheesh. Thoughts or questions?
You said that each village has these things,
Mm-hmm.
and I know one of them was the Sitka. What were the other 3?
Kayaaní.
Kayaaní?
Mm-hmm. Most of the villages would put their village near Kayaaní because you won't be able to eat it. It's a saax'ú river.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Gunhini, which I can never remember. Let me check the tone.
And you said you wouldn't be able to eat from Kayaaní?
You would.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
You'd want your village near a saax'ú river. And then you'd want ideally there's a saax'ú river and then there's a Gunhini near. Anybody know what the goon is? Low tone goon.
Spring water or
Spring water. So the Gunhini is very important in Lingít. There's a recording of a raven story by Taanáx, Austin Hammond. It was a few raven stories, and there's a point in like somewhere between the middle and the end where he starts talking about once we stopped drinking the spring water and started drinking the tap water, that's where we started getting sick a lot more. So it's medicinal. And yes, Áak'w is the name of Juneau Douglas High School. We're probably going to recommend, I would recommend Łuch'ítl'uchuhín for Thunder Mountain, just because you won't be able to outlive the second meaning of Tlach'satangin at a high school. Plus, it's closer. It's right next to Héen. Héen is the name of what used to be River Bend. Glacier Valley is also called Sit Iti Shanach. The valley where the glacier used to be. And then Gastineau Elementary School is called Sayek. Harborview needs a name. Yakuskate. Is it Dakahiti?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a school. Zantikahini. Oh, we gotta do Zantikahini.
And those are the three that most villages have. Was there any more?
Well, there's a Gunhini and a Qathini.
Yeah.
Those are,
And a
most villages will have those two things. And then a lot of them just happen to have Sitka
Okay.
and Tichhini, Chatshini.
So what is the CKA of the Sitka on the glacier in Juneau?
I think that one's, I don't know, I was just using it as an example to say like Sitka, Sitka, Sitka. So those are special exceptions, yeah. Gunhini too. I don't know if there's a Gunhini around. I mean, there is, I know where it is. Zantikahini. Because I would recommend spelling it as one word. People are gonna get mad, but
Founders, wasn't that?
I don't think that's how the word works. I think you have Zanti, then you have Ke, then you have Hini. So Zanti is a flounder, but Zanti is also a place name. Zanti is the hill right near where the capital is in downtown Juneau. And then Ke is the base of something, especially it's the base of a hill or mountain. It's also the trunk of a tree and the base of a person's spine. It's Ke. So Zantikahini is the river at the base of Zanti. Colonial Kainachage. Wasatu Asako.
Gold Creek?
Old Creek. Okay. Yeah, okay. Cheese, Shuan. We're going to get back to verbs, but I thought we should do a few of these. It's been a minute since we did some of these. So again, if someone could just read both sentences, then we'll translate them. Who wants to read?
Touch wajak iyit di ajun kushe.
Okay. Tachu yid de ajun kshe. Okay. What do we got for this first one? It's two parts. Tachu yid.
Ta is sleep.
Ta is sleep. And it's built in there. So Tach is sleep did it. What did it do?
Your son.
Your son. That leaves us with uwajak. Go look up jak. See what we find. Here's the verb dictionary. Go down to the roots. To the J. Jak. To kill. So it is a phrase, it is a Lingít phrase, it's used quite a bit. I would say Sometimes be careful with it. It's usually pretty funny. It's a tachuajak. It means they're, but there's a similar phrase in English, right? Like say, they're dead asleep, right? So you're saying, it literally means sleep killed them. And you could say, it means you just like really fell totally asleep. Tachuajak tatke. I really fell asleep last night. And it would work well for like if you had Lingít class and somebody was just fell asleep. Tachuajak. But I did use this phrase one time to talk about someone's kid, but their brother had actually just died in a fire. And I was like, tachuajak. And then as soon as I said it, I realized I shouldn't have said that. But it's always a fun phrase. It's a metaphor. But to talk about uajak, this is also a phrase that we use to talk about separating yourself from possessions at a ceremony. So you could say, Dana hasuajak, they killed the money. That means they have separated it from themselves. They now are not, they cannot claim it, they have to give it all away. But in this case, it literally means sleep killed them. And that's how you say, your son is fast asleep. What about de ajun she? Do we know any of those three words?
Dream.
Dream. Yeah, they are dreaming right now. That's a verb.
Probably.
Probably or perhaps. What about the day part? When day pops up before a verb, it means it's already happened.
So they probably dreamed.
They're-
Or they dreamed.
Probably already dreaming.
Okay.
So like for example, someone tells you something and you could say, saax'ú. What do you think that would mean? Saax'ú.
I already know.
I already know it. I already know it.
Would that be? Okay, never mind.
Put it in our notes.
Is this word, let's see, the first thing we were doing, is that document, are you gonna have that somewhere or share it somewhere, or can you at least maybe share it?
Yeah, I'll put it.
The Juno words, Juno name, please.
Yeah, like every time I make notes like that, I just put them on our class
Okay.
page. It's just it just says notes, and you could just download. Okay, you're okay. Your son is fast asleep. Maybe he is already dreaming.
Awash, duhi, yatawaha.
Sheesh, Ḳwáan, to eat your tawaha. And what do you think Ḳwáan is? Picture helps.
He's yawning.
No, he's eating peanuts. I'm just
Oh.
kidding.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. Yes, he's young. It's their verb for eating mouthful of peanuts. No, I'm just kidding. He's yawning. Yes. Ḳwáan is they are yawning. To eat your tawaha.
They're sleepy.
Yes, they are sleepy. Okay. He is yawning. He is sleepy. So read this one.
How dat du se tuch de Áak'w
Sheesh. Out the tuch, to tuch de Áak'w. What do you think?
They're opening wide.
Mhm.
like opening their mouth wide.
Yeah, or
Their teeth.
it's not teeth. You would have uch, but you don't have uch on its own.
Setuch, is that what? Setuch is throat?
Yes, Tleituch is throat. The Tleituch de Áak'w. Bring out the Áak'w. Consult the book. Go into the underlined G's. It might be under EEN. To look at. If we want to like see how it's being used, we can go to the English section under L. Go down to LOO. Nicht outqin. They looked inside. Wushbuyat has outqin. They looked around at each other. So this is to sort of, so underneath it you see tlatin. So I would say outqin is like to cast your eyes at something, right? It means it's the act of looking at something, and it is a motion verb. When you have tlatin, this is more like to watch something, either like I'm going to watch them to see what they do, or it means to watch it as in to babysit or take care of. Then you see underneath it kashatin. It means to study, take note of, like a book or a magazine. And then you've got take out and look at possessions. Look for, keep your eyes open for something, which is a little different. And then kuyatiz. So this one is to like kind of scan the area looking for something. Like if you're looking for you're watching for a deer, you're looking for, you're trying to find something by looking. That's what this one refers to.
How would you convert that or to say to look up, look down, look left, look right as like a command?
I would use kinde.
Kinde.
Kinde anashqain. So you'd say, let me switch to the notes so that we've got it. And there's actually, like if you raise children in Lingít and you speak to them in Lingít, there's a couple of interesting points. So if you say kinde Aaní. So this would be look up. So how do you think you'd say look down? Yes. So if you're washing your kid's hair and they're taking a shower, you don't want to say kinde Aaní. Why? Because it's easier if they're looking up, right? Because then the soap will run backwards and not run down their face. But you don't want to say kinde Aaní.
Lift your head.
Yes, you'd want to say
Put your head.
kinde yanis a. Because if your children grow up speaking Lingít and you say kinde Aaní, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to open their eyes and the soap is going to get in their eyes. I learned this. This is a life lesson.
Learn it the hard way.
Yes, kinde yanis a is poke your face up. Is literally what it means, right? But it means it could mean like, this one could work if you, like let's say you teach high school. Sometimes the kids, some of them, walk around with their head down, kind of mopey. You might say, Kende yanis ah. Put your head up, right? But if you say yinde yanis ah, it has a different meaning. What do you think the English equivalent of this one would be?
Put your face down.
Yes, which is also, what's another way you could say that?
Keep your head down.
Keep your head down. Yeah, so keep your head down. Or duck, right? Like, I think that's how you spell it, right? Say duck. Like, you know, they're going to hit their head on something or, you know, something like that. Okay, good question.
What about left and right? I mean, look up, look left, look right. Would it be like shinach de anishkein or satnach de anishkein, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, okay.
So we gotta spell left. Tzatnach. Tone, I think it's low. It's high. Tzatnach de anishkein. And here's where motion verbs get kind of fun. You can say gande anishkein, and you could say nech ishken. What do they mean and what's different? Let's do the meaning first. Gande anishkein.
Look outside.
Nech ishken.
Look into the house? Or look out the window, into the window?
Inside?
Yes. And you have to be inside to use this one. You couldn't be outside and say look inside. There's a couple of logical things going on in here that I think English has a hard time with. And one of them is you can say neilgu when you are yourself inside. You shouldn't be saying neilgu from the outside. You'd say hit ye gu, go in the house. And so one is the direction, this is a directional term that depends on where you're at. You have to nail to nail, and you have to niche to niche. The other thing is coming inside is a zero conjugation action, where going outside is a na conjugation. And all you gotta remember is that if you see de or dach as a suffix, those are always na conjugation. Wede nagu, wedach nagu. That's how they work. But you'd say nechke. And so here you say nech ishken. Look inside. But you'd have to be talking to them through the doorway or the window that's open, and you expect them to turn and look into the house where you are. Wow.
And kind of on the topic of up, I know I've asked you this before, but just because I hear back and forth, would be kinde token.
Kinda tuk.
Oh.
Literally means butt upwards.
Oh.
There's a tuk in it. I don't know why there's an in. Kinda tukun means upside down or bottoms up.
Is that for like drink it?
They would use it. It would be used at the bar by Lingít speaking people. Kinda tukun. And then they well, yeah. But it also just means upside down. Kinda tukun yeesh. We gave someone that nickname because they were paddling and their paddle was upside down. You okay? Okay. We'll do one more, then we'll take a break. Oh, I did write these down. Shaka. Well, sha, shaka, and shaitur. So shaka is made up of this plus ka. But when you have shaitur, there is this thing that happens Oops. Where sometimes an A verb will switch to an EI, or vowel, sorry, an A vowel will switch to an EI vowel. And that is what you've got going on here. So Ḳwáan is the neck. But it's really interesting because you don't say that very often on its own. You'd say Ḳwáan, which is on the neck, which is how you say in the mouth, which is really interesting. Llaethwch would be inside of the neck, through the inside of, like, along the inside of the neck, and that's how you say throat. So when you say llaethwch, you're not talking about the outer skin part of your neck. You're talking about your throat.
And the outside part of your neck would be
Lla.
just Ḳwáan.
It's rarely used.
And then Llaethwch is on the throat or in the mouth.
Yes, Llaethwch is in the mouth, but it literally means on top of the neck,
On top of the neck.
which is really, Lingít just has a few like puzzles like that, which are really interesting. And okay, well, I guess we should take our break, but before we do, here's something to think about. Somebody pointed this out a while ago. So if you look on the top left of these classifiers, these are what I would consider the default form of the classifier. 0, lla, sha, sa. You can add an I to change it. You can add a D to change it, but that changes what its natural form is. So if we look at its natural form, what is pretty interesting is here's lla, which is a neck. Now, I'm not saying that this is how it is, but this is just an interesting correlation. Here's sa, which is the base of the neck right here. Here's sha, which is the head. And this one is 0, but the plus I form is ya, which is a face. It's just something to consider, and maybe it helps you remember. But the first time somebody pointed that out, they're like, oh, so you can go sa, sha, sha, but why 0? And I went, off with your head. But the ya is right there. So it's just an interesting thing. It could be just a total coincidence, but it could be something if you're trying to go into your big theories of how it all works, you might consider it. So, okay, we better take a break. Come back at 10 till, and we'll get back into the verbs. Sheesh. Okay, so let's get back into our verbs. So here we are, back to the classifier, always just continuing to think about what this is. There are 4 classifier groups. Each of those groups is loosely associated with meaning. Can anybody tell me what are those? Like the S group, what does it do? The L group, SH group, the 0. What do they kind of do? Anybody remember? You had 2 minutes to ride in an elevator, 30 seconds. And someone's like, tell me what a classifier is before I get out of this elevator. Did you do it? So every Tlingit verb has a classifier. And it has to have one. It's got to have a classifier and a stem, at the least. And the classifier is part of the prefix. The classifier has 4 different groups, 0, S, L, SH. It cannot change groups without becoming a different verb. If it changes from S to L, that's a different verb. Changes from 0 to SH, it's a different verb. So Áak'w and Kayaaní are 2 different verbs. So Kayaaní is the opposite of Áak'w. Because Áak'w is good, Kayaaní is bad, and Kayaaní is not good. You can say Kayaaní, but there's not too many people who do. Each one of these groups is loosely associated with meaning. The 0 group is by far the most common. It's sort of just the default classifier. So it doesn't always attach itself to meaning. But the S group kind of does. The S group is often utilized to start putting things into categories, to classify information, which is why these things are called the classifier. So when you say like yati, that to be, siti, to be one of these things, now it's become specific. The L classifier is kind of associated with having something. So you could say or you can, wait, so let's use saax'ú. Saax'ú is a mitten. Saax'ú, what do you think it literally means, and what do you think it's the word for?
Finger mittens?
Fingered mitten, which we would call gloves, right? So it has fingers, and usually you'll put a suffix on it. Jini, it's got hands, right? Which is why a vest is called jini. Jini does not have arms. So that's the L classifier usually says it has something. There was a house, I think somebody put a giant dorsal fin on the top. It became known as shigushi hit. So here, S, L, and then SH is kind of associated with things that people don't really want, or negative things. These aren't just like every single time that's how it is, but that's the general meaning they're associated with. You'll often switch from 0 to S or L to talk about agency. It's not just happening, somebody's doing it. Yat'a, it's hot. Khwashit'a, I heated it up. Yak'e, it's good. Yeshak'e, you made it good. Yanik, they're sick. Khwasanik, I gave them a cold. I got them sick. Right? Khatin, I see it. Khwashatin, I'm watching it. Khwasatin, I see a specific thing. So that's generally how the classifier works as far as the groups go. Most commonly, you're going to go from its natural state to plus I. You add the I when you're most of the time you're adding the I to say it happened, it became that way. So that means positive perfectives and imperfective state verbs will be plus I. Okay. The D part usually is talking about middle voice. I saw myself, I talked to myself, I cut myself, I wrote on myself, any of those things, that's what we call middle voice, where the subject is also the object. Some verbs are just naturally sort of middle voiced. We were conversing. Gle, it's right there. Okay. Okay. So we did this verb. Cha, cha, icha, acha, Ḳwáan, Íacha, Áak'w, Kuk'acha, Gaqicha, Áak'w. And Janine, I see you have a question. What's that?
Yeah. I see, I may have written this down incorrectly, but I have 0 for the future in classifiers.
All futures must be minus I. So 0, da, sa, kla, sha, sh.
So is that true even if it's an, so an S classifier future would be minus I.
Yes.
Okay. So that's what that means. An L classifier would be minus I and so forth.
Yeah, so this is why you'd say tuye ikwasatin, sa, I will see you again. And that's going to be sa. It's got to be minus I. All the futures have to be minus I because they have not happened. They haven't become that way. Okay. I think we left off on this verb, right? Idna. So with both a consonant and a vowel in the classifier, because you're going to have either di or da. That's going to change a couple of things. And we're going to see what it changes specifically as we go through them. So if we look, we have da and di. The only one for what we're looking at that's going to be di is the positive perfective. Drank it. All the others will be da. So for the command form, one of the rules of the command form is it does not actually have a pronoun. So you just say cha, eat it. Nata, go to sleep. Natu, read it. So you'll just usually have the conjugation prefix, a zero form of the classifier, straight to the root. However, if the classifier is plus D, you must have a pronoun. The reason for that is because if we look back at the classifier, right? Let's go back to the full color version. So for a command form, it's always going to be minus I, right? Cha. Nata, that's this one right here. To command someone to watch it, chatin. To command someone, well, I guess if you look at the plus D versions, at ishkein, jump around, right? Those of you who are translating rap songs from the 90s, is that the 90s? Right? At ishkein, but that's just a single person. Don't start commanding multiple people to jump. Your rap song will get very complicated. But the reason why so command forms have no pronoun for a second person. Plurals, they do, right? So, and this is for the subject, but if it goes plus D, now it must have a pronoun. The reason for that, if you say shkein, you can't just say shkein. This is what the classifier would be for plus D minus I. And you cannot only have a consonant in the prefix. If there's a consonant, there must also be a vowel. So that's why you'd say at ishkein. So this drinking is plus D. That means when we get here, we have to have I. The classifier is going to be da, and the stem is going to be short and high. So we should expect I, da, na. So how would I say drink it as a command form? There it is. Itna, drink it. When we get into the doing it one, the stem will also be short and high. Na, na, na. The classifier will be da. So now we've got da-na, da-na, da-na. The thing we need to change is the subject pronoun. So we're going to have cha, I, zero, but these all have an object. So this is a zero object, zero object. This one should switch to a. So how do you think I would say, I am drinking it? Di'awah. Khadana. So now we've got dana, right? What you're going to get next is probably going to look exactly like this one. You are drinking it. It did not, exactly, right? You will have some verb modes that are identical. Isakhan, that could mean you love them or they love you. You pull it out from context, right? So what about they are drinking it? Change this to and you've probably got it. Adana. Okay, everybody say khadana,
Chadana.
idana, adana,
Adana.
khadana,
Chadana.
Adina.
idana,
Idina.
adana.
Adina.
For this if that's the only thing that's there is if there's a vowel in the classifier, it will be short. If there's not, it will be long. That's why the last one was icha. No mystery, but just lots of little sound rules, right? Okay. So if we switch it, we're going to have the first person is going to be Ḳwáan, the second person is going to be ye, the third person is going to be Áak'w. The classifier is going to be di in all cases. The stem, because we know this is a zero conjugation type. A zero conjugation type open verb in the perfective will always be long and high. So it should go na, 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 all the way across. So if we have Ḳwáan, di, na, we're going to have Ḳwáan, ye, Áak'w. How would I say I drank it?
Ḳwáan.
Ḳwáan. Everybody say Ḳwáan.
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 Wadana.
You drank it. It's got to start with ye. This part, oops, will stay the same.
Yedana.
Ye away. Yedana.
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 This one you're going to have a perfective marker, and then the zero subjects, you're going to get Áak'w. That's what it's going to start with. But this dana part will stay the same.
Audina.
Yeah, away. Audana. 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 Okay. So we got khadana, idana, adana, khwadana, yidana, audana. As we start to look at these, just like hear how they change. Look at how they change. Khwa, ye, Áak'w. If we're from Carcross or Tussin, we'd probably say dana, because we have vowel, W, consonant, vowel, stem. That's, if we get vowel, W, consonant, vowel, that's where we're going to get the M. So, we should have kukha, gaqi, and this one is going to be different, right? If we go back to what we had last time, kukha, gaqi, this is Áak'w. This is the one that will change. We'll learn all the rules for the perfective and the future. We're going to do that. For now, we're just sort of looking at them and just sort of observing what they look like. For the zeros, you have Áak'w. That's what you're going to get. But once you introduce this da, you're going to get a guchta. But even though that's there, you're going to get a guchsa, a guchla, a guchsha, a guchta. There's variations in these, but it comes down to the classifier affecting the contraction of the entire prefix. How do you think I might say, I will drink it.
Ḳwáan.
Kqadana. Yeah, oh, everybody say kqadana.
Ḳwáan.
Kqadana.
Ḳwáan.
Kqadana. And as we look at these things, if you're thinking, how on earth can I learn how to predict these? This part has not changed at all. It was kqacha. So then you say, oh, well, the classifier should be da, and every future stem will be long and high. Doesn't matter what the conjugation type is. Na, teen, gut, whatever it is. It wants to be long and high. Future will always be long and high. So this should be gaqqi, because there is a vowel in the classifier. This one is gaqqi, because there's no vowel in the classifier. The classifier is 0. So this will be gaqqi. And then the second part, even though there's a lot to it, it's going to be dana, and this will also be dana. That part won't change. You are going to drink it.
Qaqitana.
Yeah, away. Qaqitana. 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 This one, because it's da, we should expect guch, da, na, which I'm giving it to you because it's all new. But what the intention of this lesson is to just see it, start to memorize it. As we learn the rules of the future later, you'll learn exactly why all this stuff happens. And I'll tell you a little bit about it after we get this one. So they will drink it.
Ḳwáan.
Yeah, away. Aguchtana.
Ḳwáan.
Aguchtana.
Agukdana.
Aguchtana. Here's all the parts, right? So if we look at the command, this is a 0 object. This is the 0 conjugation prefix. This is the subject, first person or second person singular. The classifier is da. And then the stem is short and high. These ones, if we look at these 3, what changes here is I. We go from kha to I. Then we go from I to 0, which triggers the object to switch to a. Khadana, idana, adana. This one, we have the perfective right here. When we have yu and kha, we always end up with khwa. It jumps to the other side. It's just what it does. When we have yu and I, we'll get ye. There will be times where we'll get iya, but we won't get I. It'll always be yidde, yisse, yishe, yishe. It'll always be that. Because we have the for the object, that causes the perfective to contract to the W. This is unmarked. Aude. But once you start to get these patterns, they see them, ausetin. They watch them, auchetin. The only thing that changes here is this consonant. Ause, auche, ausche, aude. It becomes incredibly predictable once you learn how the patterns get put together. This does unlock the whole language, but there are lots of parts that are moving at the same time. Even though there's lots of parts, there's only so many things.
you already say, maybe I missed it, and I just don't remember, but why the stem went long instead of short?
Yeah. So whenever we have a perfective, right? So the rules of the perfective, and let me show you folks where you can find this stuff too, because we've been talking about these rules. So if we go into Hausaneh Hayuchetangi, and then one of the last chapters is called verb modes. So this is chapter 18, where we start really getting into how these things work. And we're going to go down to the positive perfective. What this shows you here is if there's an object, it'll be there. Doesn't mean that there needs to always be one. There must be a perfective marker. The classifier must be plus I. So those are two. If you have a positive perfective, you have to have those things. So that means when you go back to your classifier chart, if you're talking about a perfective verb, and it's in the positive perfective, it happened or became that way, your classifiers can only be ya, di, si, zi, hl, gl, sh, and j. They have to be one of those. You learn how to put the prefix together by learning how those things contract, and here's the rules for the stem. Okay, stem variation is also a set of rules. The first thing is, what kind of stem do you have? These are your 5 types of stems. We call them open, fading, closed, glottalized, ejective. They have names. It doesn't matter what those names mean. What matters is, like, what are we talking about? An open stem just means there's no consonant at the end. Fading means there's a little H that's written in the theme. The only difference between open and fading is when we put a repetitive suffix on there, the fading one will stay low. The other one will go high. Closed means it ends with a consonant. You don't have to worry about glottalized and ejective. All you have to remember is this. If it's marked high in the theme, it will not go low. So glottalized and ejective have no low version, ever. And that's important because here's how it works. Every open stem, if it ends with a vowel, the 0 conjugation ones will always be long and high. They will always be long and high. Na, ka, and qa will always be long and low. Ḳwáan, ḳwádana, ḳwátá, wúti. It's predictable. It's totally predictable. To the point where you can look up a verb in the verb dictionary, and if it shows you the perfective, you sometimes can guess what the conjugation type is. Zeros are long and high that are open. Everything else is long and low. If they're closed, all the zeros are short and high. Ḳwáxatin. Everything else is long and low. Ḳwásatin. It's predictable. It happens this way, but it is one more thing to keep in mind. The stem is, what makes the stem is this. What's the stem type? Is it open, closed, or is it one of these ones that always stay high, or is it fading? What's the verb mode? This one is perfective. Then the third question is, what about the conjugation prefix? And this is how perfectives work. They work this way every time. If we just go, now you can start combing through the verb database, and if you look at something like let's go take a look at some verbs and see if they're doing what we expect them to do. So if we go to naaq, to stand, we see this is a g event. That means the perfective should be long and low. If we go down to the perfective, we see watudanaq. That is long and, oops, I don't know why it's doing that. That's long and low, like we expect it to be. We'll go find another one. Let's go to neek, to tell information. 0 ka s 0 nig. That's na conjugation. I would expect the third person then to be a Ḳwáaní, also long and low. If we go down, we see Kayaaní, Kayaaní, Ḳwáaní. Those are all long and low. So let's go find one with a 0. Let's use nach to let go of something. So to let go of something is this one. This is a 0 verb. So I should expect a jiwanak. Should be short and high, and there it is, a jiwanak. It's all predictable. All of it is. You just have to learn what all these things do and how they interact with each other. I see a hand up, Wasa.
Hune, I've been wondering for a long time where the conjugation type shows up. So if I understand correctly, it shows up in the hortative
Mm-hmm.
and in at least some of them, and it affects the perfective stem. Are those the only two things it affects, or does it do anything else?
Well, let's go look for it, right? So here it is, Kayaaní. Coming back to, like, if it's a command form, zeros will be short and high, the others will be long and low, right? Kayaaní. There it is, long and low again, right? So the na pops up in the command form. It doesn't pop up here, doesn't pop up here, doesn't pop up here. Kanigan, Akunigan, Ḳwáaní. It does tell us that this will now be long and low. So it does affect the stem variation all the time. But as far as when it starts popping up, and so all these futures are always long and high. The future negatives are always long and low. Why does it keep doing that? Okay, sorry. The hortative is where, it's gonna drive me crazy. If I click and hold, it just starts scrolling. Okay. So it is popping up in the hortative. We're getting na plus qa. So a hortative is going to want the conjugation prefix and what we call qa mode. So that's why this qa is popping up there. It's popping up in the habitual kanchanikch. I always tell about it. With classifier kanchanikch. I'm always telling about the classifier. So it pops up in the habitual. It's popping up in what we call the potential. And then it's popping up in the conditional. It will also tell us what the repetitive imperfective will be. If it's not conjugation, you're going to get U in front of it and a K at the end. Just like you Ḳwáatunk, you Tuwatunk, you Akanik. Okay.
Just side question. Kayaaní is just no glottals, just straight across, right?
For like tell about it? You're
Yeah.
commanding someone?
Could that be, okay, yeah. Could that be like when someone's like, tell me about it?
Yes.
Could you use that as like preach?
Achin Kayaaní. Tell me about it. That works. And that works, yeah, like I might say, Tachunachawi. Well, I don't want to be mean. But if I don't know. I might say, my little brother, the life is all over the place. Then you pull out your popcorn, grab your cup of tea. Khan Kayaaní. Tell me about it, because neek, as of noun, is news, information, or gossip. Neek t'ati is a gossiper. It's good stuff, yes. And so we're diving into all of the moving parts, right? We are in the process of unlocking one of the world's most complex languages. So don't be surprised if it's just this constant state of, okay, here's this thing, here's that thing, here's this thing. I think your English brain that wants to sometimes analyze it wants to understand how every one of these pieces work. And you will get there, right? There's a step-by-step process. And the step we're at right now is we're saying, hey, look at these things. Now look at the parts that are in there. Every one of these perfectives has y and a plus I classifier. These ones, they have a long and high stem. What changes here is xa, I, 0. These futures all have ga, u, and qa. I don't know if you guys can see that or if the zoom thing is in the way. They also have da and na. So the one thing that changes here, xa, I, 0. So even if we look at the imperfective, perfective, and future, these are all changing one single thing, the subject. But the third person subject triggers that object to also change. So this is the artificial part, but then when we're going to start doing a whole bunch of drills where we're starting to build perfectives and build futures and build these verbs, and you'll surprise yourself at how accurate you become at predicting these. Then once you start learning how to predict them, when you look up a verb, you'll know how to use that verb in all these different ways. You'll get there, right? It's a step-by-step approach, and it drives some people nuts, right? Because they're like, I just want to play Smoke on the Water. And you're like, no, you got to do these guitar scales for 6 hours every day. And we're at the guitar scales part, right? And so we'll get there. Héen kach Kayaaní tsaek. Was it fire in the sky? Whatever, we could do that too. What's that?
Sorry. Do you have any off-the-cuff study recommendations for now?
Yeah, I would actually just say go into the verb database and just start looking at them, right? And don't worry about like every single little part, but just start looking for patterns. And while you're there, like say, oh, there's a useful verb, and try and find verbs that you can just use on a daily basis. Because what we're going to do, cooking. Do people probably cook? People probably eat. People probably drink, right? And then if you're thinking about what a verb is and you want to say, oh, well, what's the verb for, we go back to our old standard since our lateral kindness talk has been fighting. So like, oh, what about the fighting verb, right? So you go to gao, and then we go down to fight, and we say, oh, this is na conjugation. This is long and low every time. I don't have to change that stem ever. So I should expect I was fighting, and it's right there. I fought them. But then if you're trying to be all valiant, you can go up here and you can say, I was fighting for someone. That's what happened. I fought for them. Because I'm playing hockey and I can't let the star player get beat up. I gotta go punch the guy for him. So. But what you'll find is your brain will start to see these patterns. You're like, oh wow, there it is, there it is. And then you'll get to this point where you can sort of go to one of these and you'll say, for example, if we want to say this one, right? And it gets a little bit complicated once we throw a thematic on there, but totally still manageable. And you'll say, I wonder how you would say I tied it. And just you're just by yourself, make a prediction. Nothing's going to happen if you're wrong. This is a 0 and it's closed, so it should be dukh. So I wonder if it's kachwadukh. And then you go down there and, oh, it doesn't give you first person. But it is a kawadukh. Kachwadukh. And so there is, I guess right before we go, And we don't have class next week, so you're on break. If you want to give your brain a rest, go ahead, but don't not do anything. There is, I'll put this document up as well. This is one of these documents that's kind of a lot of stuff, but this shows you all of the verb prefix possibilities for perfectives. And if, this top row shows you what the classifier is. So we're looking really at, if it says capital C and I, that's di, ch, or di, si, zi, ch, gl, sh, and j. Could be any of those. So you could say chwasatin. There it is. Oh, chwasatin, watusatin, yisatin, yisatin, wadudzatin. So it's already built for you, and this can help you while you're putting them together. Ḳwácha, watuwacha, iyacha, yicha, waduwacha. We just did those, right? And it's right there for you. And so, like, this is another thing you can look at. And if you look at capital C and V, this says, what does it look like with a thematic? So you could say, kach shechit, I wrote it. Yachwadlaq, I succeeded. So it is there for you, but it's sort of like it's an advanced resource, but this is something else that you can look at and just start comparing it to the database. And you could come in here and you can try and predict stuff. You say, I wonder if, I wanted to say people tied it. You would look down here and you say, it would be right here, kauduwaduk, it was tied. Like in a knot. Okay. You go ahead, Juan Johan, you Kayaaní. Anything else before we go?
I was wondering about the midterm.
We don't have one. We're doing it right now.
Okay.
The midterm is just brain explosions with grammar.
I
I think that's
make sure I'm missing something.
that's probably enough. But I'll come up with a final project for y'all.
Jourdain,
Ah,
sorry, I have one more strategy question. Just if I have, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, since there are so many parts, do you think it'd be worthwhile to try to memorize just first person or singular of like imperfective, perfective, and future? And
Yeah.
a few verbs, and then just work on that for a few days or a while, maybe.
yeah, and especially verbs that are common, like eating, chacha, icha, acha. Right? Like if you look at the beginning Tlingit workbook, that one chapter, it's like 7 or 8, that just starts moving through first, second, third person for all these different verbs. Like just go through it, just read them. Because now you're reading them and you're saying them out loud, but your brain is starting to think about all those little parts that are in there. Even if you just go through and just read it. I'm sweeping, you're sweeping, they're sweeping. But then you're going to think about, oh, look at it, there's the classifier, there's this other thing. Okay. And then for our class, I'll put up a couple of things if you're interested in reading them. And so there's a couple of chapters I've got on making a perfective, on making a future. We're probably not going to get to that stuff until maybe April, but we're on our way. So if you're looking for some light reading over the break, I'll put a few things up on our class page tonight. Okay, you okay? Kadain shilsa. Rest well. See you folks in 10 days or however many it is. Yikecha.
Ganashish.
Ganashish.
Duga Hatati.
Yikecha.
Peace.